Today on Gun Talk Nation, special guest with us in person in the studio, Randy Luth. Welcome in.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation.
This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by HI-VIZ Sights, Range Ready Studios, Remington Ammunition, Guns and Gear Television, Fiocchi Ammunition, Silencer Central, FN, and Primary Weapon Systems. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. Today on Gun Talk Nation, special guest with us in person in the studio, Randy Luth. Welcome in.
Hi, Ryan. Good to be here.
So if people are listening to it, they don't know, but we've been kind of having different guests come in, and so we're actually filming on the Season 2 Build Box set, and Luth-AR is your baby, and you guys are a part of it. We appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here. We're having big fun developing new products here at Luth-AR, and you've been kind enough to show our stuff off, and we're having some fun. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, Luth-AR, how do you describe it to somebody who says, well, what's that? What does that come from?
Well, as you know, a lot of people might not realize it, but I had started or founded DPMS Panther Arms back in 1986. Original background was precision machining, tool grinding before that. I worked for a machine shop in the cities, Minneapolis area.
What kind of stuff were you doing before you got into the gun work?
Well, at that precision machine shop, we were bidding on and receiving government contracts for small arms parts. So we were making M16 parts for Uncle Sam, 1911 parts, M203 parts,
okay.
M14 parts even a little bit, and other aircraft components. So bid on government contracts. And from that's how I developed some knowledge with the AR-15, the M16. And so I headed up all the government contracts to a certain extent, did the pre-award surveys for the company, and kind of bird dogged the investigation part of finding sources, subcontractors, if it was items that we didn't make. So through that government contract background, I left that company in early '86, and then I started DPMS, Defense Procurement Manufacturing Services.
Okay.
I started that, which was a government contract consulting company. So I would teach machine shops, manufacturing companies in the Minneapolis area, even the 5-state area.
How to get government contracts?
How to get government contracts, because in the 80s, Ronald Reagan wanted to redevelop the military.
Right.
So there was a ton of money being spent to rebuild the military. And so a lot of machine shops wanted to get a piece of the action on government contracts, but they were afraid of government contracts because of the horror stories about
red tape and just
not getting paid, QC systems, setting up your quality. So I was familiar with all that, so I started DPMS as a government contract consulting company, teaching these machine shops how to get it. At the same time, I had developed a relationship with some commercial market people who knew that previously we had made AR parts, M16 parts, 1911 parts. So commercial people reached out to me at the new company and said, hey, can you find this part or that part? Well, I was familiar with the Freedom of Information Act. I knew the cage code numbers. I had national stock number detailed information. So I put all that together to locate these parts. So I'd find a machine shop that made this particular part for Uncle Sam last year, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, reach out to those companies, see if they had any leftover inventory, buy up their inventory if they had it, or issue a new purchase order to have them make more of those parts.
Because they already know how to make them. It's all done.
Yeah. So, you know, at the same time that I'm doing government contract consulting in the 80s, I'm kind of brokering AR parts, 1911 parts, and started doing gun shows in the early 90s, selling some of the parts that I had. And then that was somewhat successful. So early...
You said, and I don't know if we can go into this, I don't even know what the story is, but you said there was a story about coming to Baton Rouge at a gun show.
I did, yeah. Yeah, in fact, we received when we started making rifles, so we're selling parts, backed off on the consulting around 90, 91, decided that gun parts business was more profitable and less headaches. So I started promoting the gun parts side of it. And then we got our manufacturing license, I think in 92, 93. We were doing some Frankenstein type guns and subassemblies prior to that. And then Essential Arms was for sale in Krotz Springs, Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
So I worked a deal with that company, and I came down in April of 1993 to finalize the business deal with acquiring that company or tooling. So I thought, if I'm coming down, I might as well do a gun show. So at that time, you know, Northwest Airlines, we load up the big buckets of parts and upper barrel assembly. I thought I'll do a gun show in Baton Rouge.
Oh, wow.
So I set up.
Just bring them like luggage?
Like luggage, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no guns, no guns. But, you know, I had 3, 4 of these big bins, like big coolers filled with gun parts. Rented a car, set up for the gun show in Baton Rouge on Friday afternoon. And as I'm setting up, all the local gun show guys are going, "Who's this guy? You know, where are you from?" I said, "Minnesota." Well, they didn't particularly like that, I don't think, but they then started checking the pricing, and of course, my pricing was way lower than anybody else in the building, so they didn't like me for that reason either. Yeah. So I ended up at least paying for the expenses for that trip, doing a gun show in Baton Rouge in 1993. It's kind of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was. So then, you know, once we had the lower receiver portion, then that allowed us to have our own brand of complete firearm. Prior to that, we were buying lower receivers from Olympic Arms or PacWest Arms.
Right.
And getting variances through other manufacturers. So that lower receiver gave us the complete gun. And that's really when we started making rifles, probably around 1992, 93.
And at that point, you're a manufacturer. How are you selling them at that point? Was it going through distributors or just calling on dealers?
Shotgun News.
Yeah.
Put an ad in Shotgun News. That's how we did it back in the late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, in the 70s. Shotgun News was the Bible. If you had gun parts, surplus equipment, Shotgun News is where you went. And nobody was advertising. You couldn't afford hardly to advertise in any of the magazines back in the 80s or the 90s because the AR-15 was still kind of the edgy backdoor.
Yeah, it was this oddball. Like, what is this thing? I mean, they didn't. A lot of people know the SHOT Show, the big convention for the gun industry. They didn't even have AR-15s at SHOT Show for a very long time, right?
No. The only ones Colt did, of course, back in the 80s and 90s. We did our first SHOT Show, DPMS, with parts and subassemblies in, I think, 1991 in Dallas, 91, 92.
And I mean, what I mean by that is, my impression is they weren't allowing them in the show.
No, well, we didn't have rifles at that time, so we had the upper barrel assemblies and other components. But at that time, it was, you know, basically Bushmaster and Colt, right? Olympic Arms as well.
Right.
So that was really the only manufacturers. And then, you know, at the SHOT Show or the NRA convention, you know, back in the early 90s, there was only a handful. Up until the late 90s, there was only half a dozen of us back in 97, 98 at the SHOT Show selling AR-15s. So it's been an interesting journey with the AR-15 rifle from the mid-'80s for me into today, 2023.
AR-15 has been around for so long, but you know what you're describing. How did we get from there's 6 or 7 or 8 of us at the SHOT Show to hundreds of AR-15 manufacturers?
Yeah.
I mean, what happened?
Well, first of all, it wasn't easy because a lot of people didn't like the AR-15. I've told the story many times where back in the 90s at the NRA convention, we'd have NRA members walk by and give us the finger. They didn't want us there.
Wow.
And even at the SHOT Show, we had some issues. We couldn't show certain items at the SHOT Show back in the late 90s. So it's just an evolution of something, and it took a long time, and it took a lot of tough skin on my part and some of my competitors' parts because a lot of people didn't want us there.
Right.
They didn't want anything to do with an AR-15 rifle. What we did, Ryan, to make it more palatable, I guess, is, is in the early 90s, prairie dog hunting was starting to become popular. And so was coyote hunting, right? So what's the best rifle for that?
Those are perfect. I mean, the AR is a perfect platform for that.
Everything, you know, the Mini 14 wasn't necessarily accurate enough for 200-300 yard shots of prairie dogs and or coyotes. It was a great ranch rifle, but it just didn't have the accuracy. So with that, the oncoming of varmint hunting in the early 90s, to buy a bull barrel for an AR-15, say in 1991, 92, somewhere in there, or late 80s even, you had to go to a premier gun barrel manufacturer like Krieger, and have one specially made. They're $350 basically for a barrel blank back then. So with my manufacturing background, we were buying, we'd buy a button rifle blank, and then we'd contour it. We'd make bull barrels. So we were selling bull barrels in the Shotgun News for $189 retail, probably in 1992, 93, something like that.
These are longer ones.
We had 24-inch, we had 20-inch bull barrels. We had stainless steel, 416 stainless primarily. So we were instrumental in the early 90s of changing the look of the AR-15.
Right.
We made it look less military-ish.
Right.
With a bull barrel, fluted barrel, and then of course we took an A2 stock, we milled out and skeletonized it and painted it, made that look cool. We had our extruded upper receivers that didn't have the carry handle. I had developed a tri-mount back in the 80s, a triple scope mount. So we'd mill off the carry handle on the A1, and then we had 3-rail scope mount that we'd bolt down onto it. And that was really the kind of the initiation of the rail system, of the Picatinny rail.
I bet that was hot when you bring that up.
No, it wasn't, because there weren't that many ARs back in the 80s. Right?
But there were, Randy, there were, I'm sure, 5 guys that were really excited about this.
Oh yeah, we did. In fact, one of the stories at the Dallas SHOT Show, we had the booth, we had the tri-mount on display. 2 guys came walking up in suits, and these guys were going crazy. They were just tripping over themselves. They couldn't believe what they were seeing.
Really?
So what's with these guys, right? Well, it turns out they were from Aberdeen, Picatinny. They were government employees. And their project that they were working on was the new Picatinny rail. Huh. And nobody had done that yet. We didn't do it on the handguard. We did it on the upper receiver, on the tri-mount. But it was what they were envisioning for the future for the A2 or for whatever rifles they were working on, 10 years in advance.
Yeah.
So they actually gave me the initial solicitation shortly thereafter. I think later that year, we got a copy of the initial solicitation for the Picatinny rail on the handguards. Wow. So that was kind of fun. So we were kind of indirectly involved with the Picatinny rail way back when.
New from Remington Ammunition, core locked copper. Wow. Dependable expansion, proven weight retention, drop dead accuracy. The performance you've come to know and expect from Core-Lokt, now guaranteed with a lead-free bullet. Rigid construction from a high-strength, pure copper projectile ensures the Core-Lokt copper monometal, I like that monometal bullet, dispatches big game with true deadly mushroom performance. You can learn more over at Remington.com. Silencer Central makes it easy to buy silencers. One of the ones that we have here that we've been playing with, it's the big dog. We like to call it the big dog. It's the Banish 46. And it is the big dog because it is rated up to 4570. Yeah, it's big. But it works. Sound reduction of almost 35 decibels. Pretty cool. So if you've got a large caliber, high pressure, high power, this is the one you want, the Banish 46. You can learn more over at silencercentral.com. Range Ready Studios, well, we've got this training facility and we're putting on really cool classes. One of the ones that's coming up that I'm interested in is the Surefire Low Light Experience at Range Ready. It's November 30th and December 1st. Let me tell you, Surefire stepped up to the plate. They are donating for free to every person in the class a weapon-mounted light, an X300, and a handheld light. I think between the two of them, it's like $450 in free lights that you're going to get, and it almost pays for the class. So go over to rangereadystudios.com, sign up for the email address, and you'll find out about what's happening. FN introduced the FN Reflex. It's a small, micro-compact, 9mm, great trigger. I've been carrying it. They also have an MRD version, and the MRD version features kind of a flat, dark earth, and the main thing is it's red dot ready. So you can take the plate off, you slap a red dot on there, it's ready to go. That's kind of where a lot of people are going these days. So check it out, the FN Reflex over at fnamerica.com. Well, another thing, and you started talking about using this for varmints and prairie dogs, but then you went all in on hunting with an AR. Talk about that.
True. So as we developed the 223, we had the bull barrels, again, trying to make it look less than a military style rifle. And once we kind of capitalized on the AR market, I actually started working on our drawings for the 308 in 1994, mothballed those until around 2000. And Y2K was a big influx in AR-15 sales. Of course, nothing happened. So around 2000, market got a little flat. Election years, increased the demand, depending.
Still do.
And still do to this day, so the peaks and valleys. So with Y2K done, nothing really happening. Okay, now we've got some time to take off on our 308. So I developed our first 308, or we developed it internally, the team. And I took that first 308 rifle on a mountain goat hunt in 2002. And after that hunt was over, after 5 days of climbing from sea level up to 3,500 feet every day, the gun was way too heavy. So when I came back after that hunt, we lightened up the bolt carriers, we lightened up, obviously, the barrel, shortened the barrel, fluted it, did some cosmetic things to take off.
Just shave weight
3 or 4 pounds, wherever we could, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, the traditional AR-10s were big and bulky.
Oh, yeah. So from that, we decided that, hey, let's light up the hunting market. So then we started developing the other calibers for the 308. So anything that would fit in a 308 mag, we made that as a hunting caliber. And then each time we developed a new hunting caliber, then I'd take it on an elk hunt, or I'd take it on whatever type of hunt. And then
even did some international stuff with it.
Eventually, back in probably 06, 07, I wanted to take an AR to Africa, but semi-automatics are not allowed in Africa. So I took one of our 308 rifles. We didn't broach out the magwell. We left the magwell solid from the forging. And then we, up a receiver, we carved out a port, ejection port on the left side. And then we left the gas system in, made a plastic follower that we bolted down to the top of where the magazine would normally be. And so we put one shot in, hit the bolt catch, bolt goes forward, shoot, gas comes back, locks the bolt back, take your second, drop it in. So within a few seconds, you had a second round off. So we assumed that would be legal to bring to Africa, because I wanted to take an AR, to be the first one to take an AR to Africa and hunt plains game.
So you do this special one-off gun, attempting to make it okay with the Africa officials.
Yeah.
But then you just go to Africa with it. You're not even sure if they're going to approve it.
No clue. We were hoping that we'd be able to explain it. And I don't even think I brought a backup rifle.
Really?
Yeah. So we got to Johannesburg.
That's called, what is that called? Burning the ships? We're all in at this point?
Yeah, I got no choice. So yeah, we get to South Africa, Johannesburg, and these guys are looking at the rifle when you show them the serial number, and they're backing up and calling supervisors and bringing in everybody. And I explained to them it's a single shot. So they rubber stamped it up to Zimbabwe. They had no clue what was going on up there, so they didn't know what it was, didn't care, didn't know if it was a rifle or a shotgun. got a stamp there, and off we went. Killed a leopard, plains game, warthogs, you name it. We're shooting everything up there with the first AR in Africa. That was fun.
That's really cool.
And great promotion too.
Sure.
Yeah.
You did on all these different hunting calibers. Did you have like a favorite setup?
Well, the 308 obviously was the first and foremost, but then, you know, there's just not necessarily enough oomph. But then Federal Cartridge came out with the 338 Federal.
I thought you might say that one.
And we worked with them because Federal was just down the highway from us by 30 miles or so. And we had a lot of friends that worked there. So we teamed up with Federal on the 338 Federal and made the platform, the AR platform, with their ammo. And then they had the fusion ammo, and they had a 210 grain. I think they had a 185, 200, and a 210. And I'm telling you, I've shot a lot of big game animals with that. I shot moose with it.
Really?
I shot 10-foot brown bear with it. I've shot a grizzly bear with it, elk with it. I mean, that 210 fusion shot really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, grizzly, you name it. Shot a lot of, with the AR. So hunting, wanted to promote hunting with ARs. We were the first ones to put an ad in Outdoor Life magazine for ARs.
Wow.
Back in probably 05.
Did they give you a hard time about wanting to do it?
No, they wanted to.
You were okay?
Yeah, the team wanted to, yeah. Because John Snow was working there at the time.
Yeah, and John is...
I think still, maybe.
He's still... Yeah. I mean, he's a true gun guy and knows all that stuff.
Yeah.
B&P, known for quality ammo and innovation. The latest is the Green Core shot shell. Well, really, what's Green Core? It's a completely biodegradable wad, and it decomposes with exposure to the environment. This is pretty cool, actually. Focused on performance, reliability, and the environment, the Green Core wad is denser than water, so it will sink immediately to the bottom of any waterway, and then it just biodegrades, and it doesn't leave any microplastics. This is some serious science stuff. Whether it's slaying clays at the range or pass shooting your favorite waterfowl, there's now a solution that yields dividends for passions and the environment. You can learn more at their website. I'm going to try to say it. BasecheriPellegriUSA.com. It's BASCHIERI-PELLAGRIUSA.com. That's a mouthful. Good luck. SIG SAUER. SIG SAUER has the P365X Macro. Brings more of everything that made the P365 the #1 selling gun in America. But new to the X Macro family is the X Macro TAC Ops. Continues the theme of more with 4 steel magazines included and an all-new enhanced slide catch lever, metal flared detachable magwell to make the most of those extra magazines, fitted with a P365XL slide length and a 3.7-inch barrel. The X Macro TAC Ops brings the first non-compensated variant into the family in a versatile new package. You can learn more at sigsauer.com. PWS, Primary Weapon Systems, they're making suppressors, and their newest series is the BDE, Bravo Delta Echo, the BDE 556 suppressor. One of the things I like about it is it's modular. So it's designed and ships with removable baffles, which enable you to modify it of length and noise reduction ratings. So you say, okay, I don't care about it being as quiet as it can be. I want it to be as short and lightweight as it can be. You can actually remove some baffles and make it shorter. Or you can run it full strength, full reduction, and do it that way. It's PVD coated on the outside for a durable finish, taper threaded baffles, and super accurate. Go check it out. PrimaryWeapons.com is where you go to learn more. Hey, there's a new season of Guns and Gear, season 15, and we're talking guns, ammo, optics, lasers, night vision, thermal, all kinds of cool stuff we featured this year. So you can find it online with your iPhone. You can use the app, the Gun Talk TV app. You can use your Android, you can use Roku, or you can go to the Outdoor channel. Wednesdays, 6 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern, or 2 a.m. if you're a night owl, and then again on Friday mornings. But go check it out. New season of Guns and Gear is out now. So we got to talk about Luth-AR because we're here. We've got the MBA 22 stock, which is a new stock or chassis for 1022s. Mm-hmm. But I mean, talk about all the different things. Some people may know you kind of started with a stock for ARs.
Sure. So basically, I sold DPMS to Freedom Group back in late 07. Stayed on for a couple of years. Had a 5-year no-compete, and still had other ideas swirling around in my head. And so got kind of bored. Thought, well, let's start up another company with some of these other ideas swirling around. So we formed, with my wife Pam and daughter Heather, we formed Luth-AR. And Luth-AR was, of course, my last name, and AR. Yeah. My nickname was Luther anyway, so it was kind of a connotation there. So we started with the MBA-1 stock. So the MBA-1 was for the rifle, adjustable, half the price, half the weight as the competition, and had a booth at the SHOT Show. We shared a booth with Mark Roth. He was kind enough at X-Rail to let us share a booth the first year because we couldn't get one. And that went fairly well. And then the next year, we shared a booth with Mark again. Then the third year, we had our own booth. And by that time, the MBA-1 had started taking off, and we're having great success with that. And then let's do carbine stock. So we launched the MBA-3 and had great success with that over the years. And then the MBA-5. And of course, the skeletonized version of the MBA-1 and the skeletonized version of the MBA-3 gave us MBA-2 and MBA-4, and then the carbine version, MBA-5, which is kind of our less expensive version. So the stocks took off, and then people need buffer tubes, and of course all of our vendors and suppliers at DPMS went back to them. A lot of them were happy to hear that we're back in the business. So we had buffer tubes and springs, and then that leads to
all the other stuff.
All the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing hand guards, all kinds of stuff. Now, what I like is, I feel like every time I run into, we hang out, you're like, hey, let me show you something I'm working on. And I was talking last night, and you had this grip that you literally had a golf ball like taped to this grip for an AR, because you go, I'm telling you, this thing is better. I mean, how do you, talk about how that was developed.
Well, we've got a home in Arizona, so I shoot a lot at Rio Salado there, so I'm shooting Tuesday night steel, Thursday night tactical, but I also love the game of golf. So at my workbench in Arizona, I've got all the AR stuff, but I also have golf balls laying around. Right. So one day I'm working on the grip, the chubby grip that we came up with several years ago. That all develops from clay. So I've got modeling clay that I make all this stuff, the prototypes with, for a starting point. But I see these so I'm working on grips, and I see these golf balls laying there. I'm going, huh. So I took 3 golf balls, and I took JB Weld or something.
Right.
Liquid nails or something. I glued 3 together, and I glued 2 golf balls down at the bottom. And so I grab it, and your fingers line up in the grooves of the golf ball.
Yeah.
I'm going, this feels pretty darn good. And then the golf ball's on the bottom, right? So we haven't launched it. I mean, who knows? I mean, it looks goofy, but it actually fits your hand. Not perfectly, but very nicely. And it'd be a novelty item. So, yeah, just all kinds of weird stuff comes out.
Yeah. Where do you think, I mean, you've been around this for so long. I mean, is there some direction that you see things heading? One of the reasons we're doing the Build Box show is there's such a large number of people who are doing their own builds and wanting to customize guns. I mean, obviously that's your world these days. A lot of people upgrading with Luth-AR parts. Where are we headed with this? What do you think?
Well, there's close to 20 million ARs. I've heard 16, 18, so just round it up to 20 million. The most popular rifle in the United States, right? Probably, if you categorize bolt actions, that's obviously, but it is the most popular selling rifle for the past, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
It was a slow crawl, but then it just took off.
And then it just took off. I mean, I think my theory would be they're very versatile. You can set them up in a short configuration, a longer configuration for like varmints or long-range shooting, hunting, self-defense. I mean, in the traditional setup of a 5.56 223, not much recoil, adjustability usually in the stock, so you can hand it to a 12-year-old and they can shoot it comfortably. Your wife can shoot it comfortably. Your grandfather can shoot it comfortably.
What happened is American shooters realized that it's a modular rifle. Anybody can take it apart. Anybody can put it back together. And it's so modular that you can make modular accessories for it. I mean, look at, the stuff that we've done over the years at DPMS and Luth-AR. I mean, that's just simple garage logic type stuff versus some of these engineers, some of these shooters in the United States are just amazing to me because they've got the Einstein brain going.
Tinkerers.
Yeah. Well, they can see the stuff moving in their brain.
Right.
I can't. I gotta make it, play with it, model it, and then think about it, 100 times more before I can figure out how it works. But the modularity of this rifle is what makes it so popular. The analogy that I've used many times is, if you've got a pickup truck 20 years ago and you wanted to jazz up your pickup truck, you'd buy the visor, mag wheels, mud flaps. That's what guys do. That's
what we like to do.
The ladies, they do it different ways. They, with jewelry and clothing more so than men. So all humans like to accessorize whatever their favorite product is. And the AR is look at the Cerakoting and the plating and the lasering. It is just amazing what has happened with this product, which is fun and exciting. I love it.
It is. And I'll say another thing is, because it's doable for most people, it's very DIY friendly. Yeah. If you bought, there are very good solid rifles being sold, AR-15s that are coming from a lot of different places. But if you have a gun that you're like, I don't really like the feel of it, I don't like the trigger, it's kind of a regular mil-spec trigger or something like that, upgrade it. I mean, talk about quickly improving your experience, improving your shooting. A trigger, for me as a left-handed guy, I like a big ambi charging handle. And upgrading, we just did this on another build this week, changing the handguards out, because we're kind of getting away from those short quad rail handguards, and we're kind of going to a smoother, longer. And you even have one that's flat on the bottom, which is cool.
Yeah. I think, Ryan, one of the reasons for our success is that not only myself, but the staff and team members, we're all shooters for the most part.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm hunting with the AR. I still shoot 3-gun. So I'm out shooting the gun a lot. And I think a lot of the manufacturers, maybe they don't shoot as much. So if you don't shoot as much, you don't think as much.
Yeah, you're not getting ideas.
You're thinking about sales. And so I'm out there tinkering with this stuff. Why did this happen, or would this make it better? Perfect example is Al Greco and myself. We took the Gunsight carbine class back in the year 2000, 23 years ago.
Wow.
And Wiley Clapp was there in our class. We had big fun with him. And so, I had whatever rifle I brought with, and Al had a DPMS rifle. And so that was a 5-day class. So after 5 days, the gapper, somebody made the gapper to eliminate the cut in your hand.
Yep.
I couldn't reach the selector. I came back from Gunsight 2000, and within a week, I had a clay molded up selector. So I took clay, put it on the head of the selector, and modified it to where I wanted. I then took that prototype to the investment casting company in Minneapolis, sat down with their engineers, their drawers, and they scanned. They didn't have scanning back then, but they replicated it, reverse engineered that shape. And by December of that year, by December of 2000, we launched the first DPMS oversized selector, which is still out there today.
And so much easier to use.
It's easier to use because it didn't work for me.
Right.
My fingers weren't long enough to, you kept reaching. You have to turn your hand to reach it to shut it off, right? To put it on or off.
It's one of the big benefits of taking a multi-day class. I mean, for you, you're in the biz and it gives you ideas for like, wow, I can improve this. But even just regular folks, not only are you going to learn skills, improve your shooting, but you're going to test your gear. And you're going to figure out what doesn't seem to work when I'm doing this in all sorts of conditions. What gear craps out on you, or you're mentioning that little gapper, so where the trigger guard hits the grip, and you're having to hold the AR with one hand basically while you do mag reloads or whatever. Boy, that starts just, I mean, it'll literally wear a blister down on that knuckle. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're in the golf business and you don't play golf, how can you come up with better equipment?
Right.
So, if you're in the business, you got to get out and shoot a lot.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite funny little things is when we do these media events, we'll attend different media events at Gunsight or whatever. And when a company brings an engineer out there are some engineers who are real gun guys and shooters, and some of them are kind of gun guys and shooters, but mostly they sit in front of a computer, they're doing CAD drawings, they're doing engineer stuff. And boy, you get them on the range for 2, 3, 4 days, and they go, wow, same thing. Well, this doesn't work. I don't like how my hand, falls on the grip here, or, I think we could improve this. And well, that doesn't make sense. Why is this button here? And we're going, yeah, that's what we've been saying. But you had to come feel it and do it for yourself.
You know what I think happens in a lot of the bigger companies, big corporate companies, nobody can make a decision. It has to go through all these levels of management.
Right.
And finally it gets to the upper level, and the upper level managers are more confused than ever because nobody could make a decision. And fortunately for us, in a small company with shooters on the staff, part of the company, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, that's good.
And if it doesn't work,
we don't need to have a meeting about it.
Yeah, I mean, then we guessed wrong. But we didn't have many failures, if any. Most everything that we made, some calibers obviously didn't sell that good, but like we talked earlier, we made the 300 short action ultra mag AR, the 338 Federal, the 308, 7M08. What else?
260?
260 Remington, 243. We made all of those.
Yep.
And we teamed up with Hornady on a 6.5 Creedmoor when they were developing that. We worked with them on the AR platform as well. And that was fun. And that was in 07, I think. And that it didn't take off. The 6.5 Creedmoor
It was around.
It was around, but it didn't take off until, what, 10 years ago, 7 years ago?
Yeah, probably something like that.
All of a sudden.
And now, I mean, what's wild is you remember the days when someone brought out a new rifle, and I'm kind of thinking like bolt guns. It was available in 308, 243, 30-06.
Yeah.
Maybe 270.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And then they might expand from there. But now what's interesting, because people go, cartridge fads, this cartridge is hot, that one's hot. I'm telling you that the 6.5 Creedmoor is here to stay. Because it's like, what are you bringing it out in? 6.5? Anything else? Well, maybe some others later down the road go, wow, okay, that's it.
Yeah, it is really, but it did not take off in 07 or whenever it was, the early days. It just was slow rolling. I thought it was because of no competition, or the writers didn't like it, or who knows what. But
there's a ballistician at Hornady going, I told you guys this was going to be
guaranteed.
Good. Yeah.
Guaranteed. I mean, it made sense. Flat shooting. Oh, man.
Load longer bullets.
Yeah, big time popular.
Well, thanks for being on with us, man.
Yeah, it's fun talking.
What did we forget to talk about with Luth-AR? Because I feel like you're like, hey, did you hear about this? We're like, there's more.
Yeah, I mean, there's just all the stuff. We've got the hand guards, the palm guards, the wide body hand guards with a flat on the bottom. We've got the new armorer's wrench that just came out. We got the wing grip. We got the chubby grip, which is right hand only, thumb rest on top, a little fatter grip. The wing grip now is ambidextrous, similar to the chubby, 2 wings on top, help support the gun as you're handling it, as well as thumb rests. All kinds of stuff. We got some other new stuff coming out here shortly.
Never shortage of ideas.
No, just it's fun to it's fun. I enjoy developing stuff and launching it.
Yeah. Well, Randy, thanks for being on with us.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Always fun.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's it for us. We'll see you guys next time on Gun Talk Nation.